I would take a second today to go over a few exemplar inquiry homework examples for everybody to see from our Unit 1 inquiry, so you can get an idea of what some of the samples look like and what the students did with their homework, as well as a good sample of what their expectation is. Now, I'll pull up this one right here. So I scanned the documents to show the homework of a student that worked on their project. This is some of their front loaded pages. And then on day one of week one, they did their brainstorming. They had three different things that they were possibly interested in. They wrote why they chose it. And then in the next section, they chose their final inquiry question and why they chose it, and then things that they already know about their topic and things that they want to know. So this is all part of week one. Then days 3 and 4, it asks to get the sources. So with this exemplar here today, you can see that in the source type section, they showed what kind of resource it was, whether it was an interview, a website, an article, a book, and then they cited their sources. With an interview, I just said, write down what you learned from that interview. So they cited their sources there. And then in week 2, for this exemplar, they chose each subtopic. They wrote what the source was and then the notes that they got from it. And then again, with interviews, what they learned from their interviews. Again, subtopics are part of the smaller topic. So this students was about autism, and then they talked about behaviors of autism for their subtopic 1. For subtopic 2, they talked about problems that children with autism have. So they took some notes there, and again, they're saying what their source was. And they don't have to put a full URL in this source section. I can go back to their week 1 to look at for a full URL if it was a website that they used. Like she wrote website 2 here. That means I can go back to the first week and look at what that website 2 was. So there's no need to write the URL over and over and over. Again, subtopic 3 was how they communicate with autism. So this scholar took some more notes, and again, they cited the website they used, and I can go back to their first week to find that. Each week, again, I will be circling whether they did each portion of it. You're looking for 3 yeses, hopefully. If not, sometimes I'll write a little note that lets them know what they need to work on. And then going on to week 3. Week 3, they're working on writing their introduction paragraph. They have to come up with questions, interesting facts and quotes, and set a scene to get an idea of what they're going to want to write for their hook, their very first lead sentence. So this gives them a little bit of practice with that. And then down here, this particular scholar decided to type it. And at the end of this slideshow, at the end of the show, I'll show you what their final typed up paragraph looked like. And again, I went through the yeses and nos. They typed it up for me, so I was able to check that on week 3. Week 4, they're going through a bunch of checklists to make sure that they have everything on the list. This particular scholar just colored in the boxes to make sure that they had finished it. They circled the words on the revision, addition and transitions section. So the scholar used the words to start, in conclusion, and finally. I just asked that there are a few transition words within the inquiry homework, and I have them go back and circle which ones they used. And then again, a self-editing checklist to make sure that they've done everything on the list there as they're looking back on their first draft. Then moving on to the next section, after they've done all the revisions in their checklist, they do a final draft. And again, this scholar has decided to go back to their first draft, which was a Google Doc. Also makes it a little bit more streamlined to go back and fix things and not have to write it a second time. So they left this blank, but I'll show you their final writing at the end. Then that same week, I asked them to go ahead and put an overall grade in using the writing rubric here. So this particular scholar circled that they thought they had a 3 in all the different sections for writing. And then I went through and I checked for that particular week. Then moving on to week 5 is when they start their presentations. So for this particular presentation, this scholar circled that they were going to make a board game. So the scholar made a board game. And then They wrote about what they were going to do for their final project, what they're going to need to what kind of supplies they're going to need, and said that could be a list. So they wrote a list. It says what they're going to need to do to complete it, what's their plan for the week, how does it still relate to the main, the central idea. This copy didn't come out very clearly, but down here it talks about challenges and how autism can be a challenge. So they did connect it back to the central idea. And then finally, week 6, where they're putting their final touches on their presentation. Again, what do they do? The scholar completed everything for their project. Does it still relate back? Yes, they talk about the challenges, what their cards on their game do. So they connected it back to the central idea again. And then this scholar's, oh, and also the last thing on the end, I asked them to self-grade their presentation as well. So this scholar gave themselves a 3. And then this was the scholar's final writing. Now, in this particular case, the scholar decided to write more than one paragraph. Again, we said that one paragraph is just fine, but for this scholar, they got a lot more information and they wanted to add more information to it. So it ended up being a multiple paragraph writing piece. And the final project for this particular scholar, they made a game board and they had certain kind of cards. They had a little game board that went with it. On the cards, it had questions about autism. It had little pieces that went with it. So this is just a look at one exemplar piece from an inquiry homework that we have worked on for Unit 1. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for your time.